Christian, this is Crowlands, we're a narrative gaming channel, and today we're going to talk about superheroes and superhero gaming. Because it's so odd, in the last 20 or so years, superheroes have entered into the mainstream in a huge way, almost entirely through film and TV catching up to comics. What we could only do with pen and ink before, now we can do with CGI. But that has not really fed back into tabletop gaming, and it's very odd that we, of all people, have this odd lacuna in our fantastic enjoyment. And I think it's also a great shame because superheroes are an ideal form for RPG. They're great to roleplay in. So superheroes start in the 1930s, and this is cut down. But basically in the 1920s, there's something that we now call pulp fiction, which is quick and easy to produce, had a bunch of short stories in it. There was no TV back then. There was just the talkies on the radio. So in the time, pulp fiction grew to be around colourful characters like the Spider, who's my all-time favourite, he's the best, the Shadow, the Avenger, Black Bat, Captain Future, and so on. Domino Lady, she's cool. Some were a bit more science fictional, like Buck Rogers. So then World War II comes around, and pulps have become, for their day, quite bloody and saucy, with lots of dames with their gams visible on the cover, getting menaced by scientists and apes. And the readership had changed. They were mainly servicemen, American servicemen in Asia and Europe, and we couldn't have soldiers fighting Nazis seeing anything untowards and rude. So superheroes who were aimed slightly younger were sort of a kiddie pulp fiction that slowly replaced pulp. And that's when you get Batman gunning people down and Superman throwing dudes into propellers in their early years. And this went on until American censors decided that superheroes were turning into a gay communist hooligan. And so capes are out until the 1950s, and then a couple of years later, they're sort of remembered. And that's Fantastic Four, probably the best place to start the Silver Age is Fantastic Four. And they were trialed again in what we now call the Silver Age, and modern comics draw their origins from right there. But soon enough, it's the 1970s, RPGs are up and running, and within about 10 years there's a second wave of post-D&D games from TSR, Star Frontiers and Boot Hill, and then they did the great and fun Marvel game, which I still highly recommend and I still use all the time. I especially do a kind of Exalted ripoff with it. And then Champions come along, Daredevils, Mayfair's curious DC system. I just love Golden Heroes. And a lot of these games have been great. And here's why I think if you've never tried superhero gaming, you should give it a try. Characters. I think characters are one of the best reasons to play superheroes. Because if you've ever sat down to play, I don't know, Pathfinder or D&D or whatever, and you look through the rulebook and you're like, oh, I suppose I'll play a cleric. And to me, that's one of the big problems with cast-based games. If you're on the hobby for a few years, you'll see them all, you'll play them all, the mystery will be gone because you'll know the rules. And also, sometimes classes just aren't appropriate for a game. Like if you're trying to play a wizard in a low magic, low fantasy D&D game, one of the things about superheroes is they're quite good at assuming those wildly different backgrounds. The X-Men are a school. You can come from all over the world. Justice League has an alien, a shadow ninja, a fishman, a police scientist, and sometimes a hard-boiled PI who's also a telepathic Martian. This variety of PC concepts, it makes me love superheroes. You're a master of the blade, you're a cyborg, you're wearing indestructible flying armor, you're a ghost, you're a demon, you're from another dimension, you're just some dude who does a lot of push-ups, and it's a perfectly fine roster of heroes to have. And there's different themes and there's different aesthetics that conflict and juxtapose with one another in strange ways. That's great for superheroes. You create a lot of PC conflict. This is Batman going to the Justice League and saying, I'm not going to fight Mongo, Gotham's in trouble. And this sort of stuff, these sort of interpersonal clashes are a staple of the genre of superheroes. It's good. And with that wide variety of characters comes, even better, a wide variety of adventures. Batman keeps a Dalek in his Batcave. Iron Fist fought the Daleks as well. Thor once got into it with a future cop who rode around New York on a rocket sled. Wonder Woman, Greek demigoddess, she fights science freaks and aliens. It's one thing to see the Punisher shoot 1,000 mafia guys in a year, but then he fights a robot, then he fights a Frankenstein. Superheroes abandon a unified setting for a bricolage of character concepts as well as rich and interesting stories. You can get a lot of variety in what you actually present in an ongoing superhero narrative. And think about what that actually means for your game, for your campaign. Because if I sit down to play D&D, I'm probably going to raid, we're going to raid a tomb, probably going to raid a cavern, might take on some bandits. If I play Call of Cthulhu, I'll probably investigate my uncle's death, or I'll check out a weird museum where people are investigating. But in superhero games, I could be fighting off an alien invasion one session. Next session, I'm dealing with a body-jumping demon, or I'm taking on organized crime, or I'm dealing with an orc who's run at me across a dimensional rift. There's just so much that can happen within a superhero game, and a good superhero GM embraces that. And then, of course, there's genres. Another one of the great things about superheroes is that they take place in a bunch of different genres almost simultaneously. Do you like science fiction? You can do space opera. You're all Green Lanterns. Or the Guardians of the Galaxy recruit you to steal a space diamond. Or you can do more near future, more grounded SF stuff. A deadly new meme haunts the internet. Dr. Bastard has started giving low-level scumbags superhuman mutant growth hormone. It's a bit more grounded, but it's still definitely science fiction. Maybe you like horror. Do a haunted house. Superheroes check out a haunted house, a haunted castle, a haunted space station. Doctor Strange and Dr. Fate are always fighting demons and elder gods. You can fight a werewolf or a Dracula. Maybe you want a mystery. It's fun to solve mysteries. Who stole the moon? Who stole the president's neck? Do you want to do fantasy? Well, your PC fled from Middle-earth to avoid Sauron, somehow landed up on DC Earth, and now you're asking Batman to help you come and kick an orc and a Balrog to death. But let's talk a little bit more about action, because I think it's a great part of superhero gaming. Action! Now, for a big part of the RPG community, action is the juice. You're there to kick ass, chew bubblegum, and you are all out of bubblegum. And a tense sword fight against goblins. It's pretty fun, right? Everyone likes a good old fantasy battle. But you could also be facing down giant alien worms who are destroying your city. You could be in a tense showdown in an abandoned hotel against ninjas using a variety of improvised weapons. You could battle a supergiant god who's throwing buildings at you, or you could punch the devil in hell. If you play at a really battle-heavy table, I'd again recommend superhero gaming. And one of the fun things about superhero gaming is that the rules are often written with this anticipation in mind, the scope of the battles. How does a blind man with a billy club fight the god of thunder? A good superhero rules accounts for this. And the final thing that I think that you should really think about when it comes to superhero gaming is the role-playing, the best part of the role-playing game. I think the best example is that one of the things is that comics do, which the films have been very reticent to do, much to their discredit, is that they don't have the soap opera that so many comic books do. The X-Men, you probably know about the Wolverine, Scott, Jean love triangle, lasted for 30 years. Justice League, back when they were in Detroit, had Zatanna and Black Canary both fall in love with a 60-year-old black guy. He was very grumpy, it was very strange. Wonder Girl had literally the worst taste in boyfriends in recorded history. Just, oh my god, she had this, he sucked. Anyway, you've got civilian identities to maintain, a classic superhero story element. Spider-Man is forever having his enemies threaten his loved ones, finding out his secret identity. A lot of heroes have conflicted loyalties. Captain Atom loves the Army, Captain Atom loves the Justice League, the Army doesn't love Justice League. Moon Knight has Khonshu and all his problems. Batman prioritizes Gotham, even when Superman thinks, don't prioritize Gotham, you know, we should be saving the entire world. Then there's all of these interesting challenges that as a PC you can experience. Maybe you were a former sidekick. Maybe you have a troubled relationship with the hero who you used to sidekick for. And maybe that's not an NPC. Maybe that's an actual PC. That'd be fun. Your hero might be world famous, galactically famous, but yet have problems paying their rent. You might have escaped your horrible alien culture or your service to the Black Dragon and soul-killing ninja clan, and you were haunted by guilt about what you had to do. Good superheroes have intense emotional problems to start with and then develop fraught and intense relationships with other heroes. Go read up on Hawkeye's love life. Wolverine bangs like a doormat, goes out like a sewing machine. Jessica Jones and Luke Cage in the comics have a fun romance. And while I often find a lot of PC backstory is problematic, especially to a fantasy game where, you know, the focus is much smaller, in superheroes, backstory is great. You tell the GM that you're the last princess of Venus, and that's useful to the GM. They know that Venus is a thing, and you can assume that you'll be meeting your evil Venusian imposter prince half-brother. You're a secret government super soldier. Tell the GM that, and they'll probably be glad that there's a source of not only adventures, but enemies, and possibly you can tie in other people's backstories to that. Also, players come up with NPCs in these stories. It's fantastic. You get your Uncle Ben's, you get nosy next door neighbors' kids. Bucky Barnes, like, your childhood friend turns out to be your greatest villain later on. Gems in superheroes, because you want to have such a huge warehouse of genre elements to draw on, I highly recommend actually pay attention to the PC's backstory. Let them have their own supporting cast. So I think those are some fun reasons to try superhero games. I'll do another video later on breaking down all the things that you need to think about to actually set up a game. But I'll end on this note. Read some comics rather than films. Go to the library. Go to the internet. The films just rarely capture the characterization of superhero comics, and they never really capture the scope of them at all. So anyway, that was fun. Why don't you give me a like, please? And I'll see you next time. Bye bye now.